keep the conversation going. I'm excited to have everybody live with us. So we're going to jump in. We are at the top of the 9:30 mark here in San Francisco. I'm Morgan Chaney, and I'm so excited to have everybody on with us today. We are touching a topic that's obviously very close to our hearts with Blueboard and Lattice, fresh ideas for appreciating top employees all year long. I'm going to do a quick introduction of our panelists. We did have some changes. Unfortunately, Manny Hernandez was planned to join us today. He had an emergency this morning and was not able to. So we're doing a little bit of a swap, but we're super excited for our panel joining. I'll kick it over to Sara to do a quick introduction. And Sara, feel free to share a little bit about your role and what you're excited to share today, what you're excited to get out of today's webinar.
Sure. Yeah, my name is Sara Piedmonte. I'm the Director of Human Resources and Talent Experience at WillowTree. WillowTree is a digital product agency, which basically means that we work on any platform or interface in which humans interact with technology. So that's mobile apps, web apps, voice applications, things like that. And we realize that the best way to really have a successful business is to build strong teams. And one way to do that is to show recognition and appreciation. So I'm really excited to talk about what we've learned.
Great, and
awesome.
I am, sorry, just jumped
Go ahead,
on
Shannon, you're up next.
I am Shannon Ferguson, and I'm the head of people at Blueboard. So I work closely with Morgan, and she will talk a bit more about Blueboard, but the sort of kind of simple connection here is that Blueboard is a company that helps others reward and recognize their employees with meaningful experiences out in the world. And so I am both aligned with the topic of employee appreciation and employee recognition from a sort of HR practitioner view, as well as at our organization.
Wonderful. Thanks so much, Shannon, for joining. And then welcoming Annette as well.
Hi, I'm Annette Cardwell. I'm so I actually didn't catch this, but my name is not CAL, it's CAR. I'm the head of content at Lattice, and I'm here to talk about specifically about our feedback tools for Lattice, and I'm going to tell you a little bit more about Lattice in a minute. But we're big believers in employee recognition and praise, as we call it at Lattice, and making people feel appreciated and doing their best work. And I'm excited for this topic.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you to all of our panelists. Welcome. And for those of you I haven't met yet, I'm Morgan. I run our marketing team and support Shannon and employer branding. So always love having her here at Blueboard. And what we'll do is jump into a quick sponsor overview so we can chat more about Lattice and Blueboard. You'll see on screen too that we're going to be running a quick poll. As we're describing the offerings and why we're focused on appreciation. You're welcome to raise a hand if you'd like to meet with our team after the event. So for those of you unfamiliar with Blueboard, we are a recognition platform that's all about hand-curated experiences, meaning when you're celebrating employee anniversary milestones, company values winners, people who go above and beyond in their role, or who refer new talent to your company. Any of those instances where you might have otherwise been rewarding with cash or gift cards. In exchange with Blueboard, you're able to offer a menu of hand-curated experiences that they get to choose to go on with their friends, family, and loved ones. Ultimately, we're all about bridging those meaningful connections, helping people challenge their comfort zones, try something new, and indulge in their hobbies, whether that's family vacations, salsa lessons, taking a glass blowing class. At the end of the day, it's their choice, and we have a concierge service who handles all their planning and logistics. So if you'd like to learn more about Blueboard, feel free to mark so in the poll. And then I'll hand it over to Annette for a quick intro of Lattice.
Great, thanks, Morgan. So Lattice, if you're not familiar, is a people management platform. We combine performance management, feedback tools, and engagement software, along with a layer of analytics in one platform. So as you can see on the right side of this slide, on the performance side, we have tools that enable goal setting, one-on-ones and updates, team updates, real-time feedback and praise, which we're going to talk a lot about today, and of course, performance reviews. And on the left, on the right side, we have engagement, continuous engagement monitoring. So not only do we have tools for employee surveys, but also pulse surveys so that you can continually check in on engagement throughout the year. And then we also have an analytics layer that helps you connect those two sides of your people data. So we also have, we run this for about 1,600 companies, like including Slack, Asana, Pinterest as an example. And then we also support HR leaders with our Resources for Humans community on Slack, which is around 7,000 people right now. So if you're interested in joining that, that's also a fantastic resource for people leaders out there.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Annette, for that overview. We'll jump into some quick housekeeping and what our agenda will be today. So we just got through our welcome and intros. We'll then move into why appreciation is a huge part of your talent strategy, ultimately why we are all here today. We'll then cover kind of the nuances and differences when thinking about appreciation versus recognition versus rewards. And we'll talk through some scenarios where they're most appropriate to give and receive. And then we'll be handing it over for a great discussion led by Sara and Shannon, best practices for giving employee appreciation and praise, and a peek into some of the own programs that we run and operate that we're really proud of. As time permits, we'll have some live Q&A at the end, but actually for a lot of those of you who submitted questions during registration, you'll see those popping up across the slides in different groups to help guide the story. So thanks ahead to about the 100 questions we received. It was hard to pick and choose, but we're excited to feature some of your questions as well. With regards to other housekeeping items, our lines will be muted for those attending, so we encourage you to use the chat or the Q&A tool to ask questions to our panelists along the way. And as we have time at the end, we'll also be covering off on those live questions. We'll also be recording this session, so if anyone does have to drop off early, we'll be publishing a recap and recording to our blog that will be circulated next week. And anyone who's registered will receive that recording by default, so we'll make sure to get that into your hands sooner than later if you aren't able to join the full time. And for those of you seeking the SHRM or HCI credits, we do have those available. That will be on the last slide. We will ask that you join for the duration of the session to receive those codes. But yeah, without further ado, I think that's everything. We're going to jump into our first section, which is all about, why is employee appreciation such a critical part of your talent strategy? And I will hand it over to Annette to walk through some metrics that we thought mattered and really help set the tone for today's conversation.
All right, great. Thanks, Morgan. So one of the reasons why it's so important to invest in employee appreciation is retention. This is a big, this is an OKR for a lot of HR people leaders out there to keep those numbers up in terms of turnover. So one of the stats we love to quote is this: 79% of people who quit their jobs cite lack of appreciation as the reason for leaving. So this is obviously a really high percentage. And it seems like as we talk through some of these best practices today, it's actually not a big effort to show that appreciation. So hopefully today we'll be sharing some smart ideas, not just on showing people that they're appreciated and recognizing their hard work, but also rewarding really great work. The next stat is around productivity and engagement. So 69% of employees from that same study say that they would work harder if they felt their efforts were better recognized. So not only are you going to see higher productivity, you're also going to hopefully see higher performance levels. So people will be just performing at a higher level and actually maybe even exceed a lot of the expectations that are set for them. Finally, 60% in organizations that put heavy emphasis on praise and recognizing employee achievements see better engagement. So obviously engagement is one of those things that lifts all boats and is also like a really great stat that you can use to measure the effort that you're putting into this program. So that's another great metric to use when you're trying to show the effectiveness of appreciation programs.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Annette, for walking through those. Always love to set the stage with why we're here. And it's great to also just point to recognition's impact across the greater organization and the other metrics that our leaders care about. So a great segue here, Zeke shared a question, which I thought was perfectly relevant to place here. We've seen the data, but how do we ultimately go about building a business case? So his question is, what are some tips and tricks for presenting these ideas to ownership and other executives to get that buy-in to invest into a program? So I wanted to look to Shannon and Sara to share any immediate thoughts here.
Definitely. Yeah. You can imagine that I'm in an organization where our leaders are generally pretty on board with rewards and recognition, as that's kind of the, foundation of our business. That being said, we still have times where we're making a choice, how much or how often or what kind of employee recognition are we offering? And I would say that, from my perspective, as we try to navigate those decisions and as I make recommendations, what I'm looking at are many of the positive impacts that Annette has kind of just cited around engagement for our company. People feel great when they feel that others notice their work and appreciate their work and really take the time to acknowledge what they are investing in the business. And I think, that's a very human emotion to feel. And my leadership is just really responsive to the idea that when we recognize people and show them that we care and know what great work they're doing, that then they continue to do more great work, that is compelling for our programs.
Yeah, I can echo that. I'll echo that a little bit of what Shannon said. I would use some of the stats that Annette just shared with us. WillowTree has 550 people across multiple locations. And like I said before, building those solid teams and retaining those team members is one of our main strategic points. And so I think if you go to your leadership with some of those numbers and some of that, data-driven information, it can really help sway if they're towing the line for any reason. It can really help sway them over as well.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much for shedding light on that. And thank you again, Zeke, for the question if you're joining us live right now. So next we're going to move into this notion of, what is the difference between appreciation versus recognition and rewards? Sometimes these terms get mixed around or kind of used holistically, but there's actually a different perspective of what each means that us and the Lattice team wanted to walk through and share with you. So we'll start with appreciation. Appreciation, also to take a step back, what I like to do is actually visualize this more in a pyramid. So when you think about the layers and the effort that rolls up to the top of your organization, the best in class versus the everyday moments, we see appreciation ultimately living in a space where it should be for the entire company. Everybody at the company should feel empowered to and understand how to give appreciation. It should stem from the top ultimately. It should be part of your culture. And just like Shannon and Sara mentioned, it's something that just feels really good to give and receive. So ideally in a perfect world, everyone at the company feels empowered to share that they see and value the work of their teammates. But when we think about appreciation, again, it can be used in really any type of situation. And it's really about, an employee who met your expectations and really did their job well. Like we see that you were intended to do this role, you've achieved that, we want to appreciate you and continue to motivate that way. But it's a little bit different from recognition and it's informality that way. So again, to close on appreciation, the entire company should use it. It should be comfortable. It can be informal and something that is really used to drive positivity and to acknowledge the work that people are doing well. When we move into recognition, this is where we have a little bit more formality, and it might not be that every situation deserves really formal recognition. So we think as being something really for that top 75% of the company. And we look at the difference between appreciation and things like this notion of above and beyond behavior. So not only did you do your job well, but you really went above and beyond. You did something that was different and incredible, and you went out of your way maybe to help others. You hit a really big milestone. You closed a really big deal or exceeded your quota in a tremendous way, or you demonstrated behaviors and actions that were truly beneficial to the company and not expected of you. So we see again that nuance and recognition being a little bit more formal and for those above and beyond occasions. One thing on recognition is that it's great to be delivered in a personalized way. Some employees love, big public celebrations of recognition. Some don't. That would make them like squeamy and uncomfortable. Some like being acknowledged by leadership. Some don't. They might be intimidated. So when thinking about recognition, especially as someone who is a manager of people, it's always great to think about, what is that language of appreciation that they love? How is this going to make them feel even better versus maybe introduce some uncomfortability, if you will, that might not sit as well with that employee. So personalization is key for recognition moments. And then rewards are ultimately going to signal those above and beyond achievements. We want to put someone on a pedestal. We want to really use the reward as a motivator as well as a tool for celebration. So, and rewards especially are going to pair with recognition moments, but it doesn't have to be for every single moment of recognition. We see rewards as usually being reserved for that top 30 to 50% of your company, especially when thinking about program planning like spot rewards or company value rewards. Because again, if everybody received it, it wouldn't have the same amount of specialness, or it might not be as coveted to really go above and beyond to seek out the rewards that are available. So when we think about rewards, again, it's socialization. It's the ability to create a ripple effect and to have kind of a ceremony or an opportunity for attention on that individual to really spotlight what their performance is, so that others around them are ultimately more motivated to perform at those superior levels that we've deemed appropriate for receiving rewards. So it's a great time, again, to celebrate the employee, to continue awareness around the programs that you offer, and to drive people towards those bigger goals ahead of them. So I wanted to hand it over to Annette, who's going to talk a little bit more about, what are some situations where you would need to make decisions between appreciation, recognition, or rewards, and a little bit more context on how they view that at Lattice.
Great, thanks, Morgan. We have built into our tool feedback and praise. And so a lot of our philosophy around delivering appreciation and recognition are, as Morgan mentioned, around that sort of private and really public praise. So I wanted to go through a few occasions, a few moments where it's really appropriate to deliver either appreciation, recognition, or rewards. And I'm going to leave some of the rewards piece to Morgan at the end, but I'm going to talk through some of these other moments that are all relevant here. So for appreciation, there are a couple moments that are really key. One is when they challenge comfort zones. In some cases, it may be taking on a new role, taking on some new responsibilities within their current role. They maybe built a process from scratch or learned a new skill that's going to benefit them in the long run. So this might be a really great opportunity to give some private appreciation, reach out either like through Slack or through email, and really just give them a nod to say, I really appreciate you kind of stretching beyond your comfort zone and taking this on. Or if you support a cross-functional teammate, it might be really great to show them that you noticed that they did this, and and maybe especially if that teammate reaches back out to you as their manager and lets them know that they felt really supported by your employee, it'd be great to give them a nod of appreciation as well. So getting into bigger moments where recognition is really important, these feel more appropriate for like public praise. So in some cases, this may be giving a shout out in all hands. This may be just like sending out a team-wide email, or if you're a Lattice user, this may be like using our praise tool in Slack. These are some bigger moments that really warrant you showing your team and your employee that you support them in this recognition way. So one might be after a big launch or project that they've helmed. This is obviously going to be a moment where they have the spotlight on them to be successful or to fail. So if they're really successful in that big launch, you want to show that they have really gone above and beyond, like Morgan said. Another big moment is obviously anniversary milestones. This is one where most people give praise, and it's not usually something that we have to be reminded of, but if that's not built into your systems of like understanding when people's anniversaries are happening or when these big milestones are happening, it is important to like make sure that you're remembering those and showing recognition, because 9 times out of 10, that employee knows that very well and wants to see that recognition. So it's a great reinforcement mechanism to show that public recognition of that anniversary. Another big one is obviously when that employee gets promoted. This should be a natural, right? This is really obvious. It should be to every manager. If your employee is getting promoted and given a new, more hefty role, you're showing that recognition publicly and touting their new milestone. And then there's 2 more here, live and demonstrate company values. On the Lattice side, we actually build this into our praise tool, like a way that you can actually tag people on the company values, on your company's values that are exhibited in the behavior that you're praising. So this is something that should just be sort of like part of your reinforcement of company values, that you build it into the recognition that you're giving your employees when they show a win. And then finally, going above and beyond as a performer, you're setting a new bar for the company. And I think, you know, Morgan, this is a good place for me to hand it over to you about rewards, because this feels like one that really warrants like a big reward and for that employee.
Yeah, for the above and beyond performer. Yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
So in this case, it's really about, you know, those employees who are truly changing the way that we think about their role. They're ultimately probably performing in their next future role of promotion. So when we think about, wow, I didn't even expect that of you, you know, this is incredible, you've really gone above and beyond. This is a great way to signal again that behavior. Maybe they implemented a new training, maybe they completely rescripted a sales deck, you know, unprompted, and really wanted to take strides to make our business better, to make our output stronger, or our operational efficiencies more streamlined, whatever it might be, but something that really can scale, that changed the game for their role and most likely impacted the others that they work with, their peer group. So yeah, we love to celebrate those achievements. And I know Shannon will be talking about some of our greatest of all time, or our own GOAT awards that we like to celebrate quarterly later on in the material. So we'll get into more of that later. But yeah, company values, I would say, and that above and beyond is what we love to personally celebrate most at Blueboard. And we're excited to share more of those details with you guys later on. Wonderful. Annette, anything else to close out here? Thank you so much for the walkthrough otherwise.
No, that's great. Thank you.
Cool. And I just placed on the chat too, we always love hearing just from the audience, as we're this big group of now, I think about 400 people on the line together. So on the chat, if you do have any programs that you rolled out that you're really proud of, whether ways to appreciate each other, recognition programs, or reward programs, would love to keep hearing from everyone on the chat now. Thank you so much for anyone who shares.
I just thought of one more that was really cool, that actually the Q&A person sort of reminded me of, and this is not directly answering her question, so I don't want to say that, but it did remind me of, like, onboarding is actually a great moment that we celebrate at Lattice for recognition. So within the first 2 weeks of people starting a role, we actually make sure that everyone gives the manager always gives that person a bit of recognition, just to make them feel really welcome. So it establishes that this is a place where recognition happens and praise happens. So I know that there was there's a Q&A which we'll get to, but that sort of reminded me of that moment. And I think that's such a special way of starting praise off from day one.
Yeah, it's a really important notion, right? Because we want that to be part of our culture at the end of the day, right? So if you're using onboarding to talk about the reward programs you have, to talk about company values, if that's part of your reward programs, or to show off some of the tooling, and that, I think that's absolutely right. It's a great way to show that leadership cares about recognition, because we are taking time out of onboarding to spotlight that, and to get people potentially using those tools, speaking that language, right, as soon as they start interacting with their teammates. So great addition. All right, we're gonna jump into a question. We have a few from the audience. We'll start with this one from Catherine, which I thought was great. We were just kind of talking about this, right? How do you foster a culture of appreciation? But specifically, her question is related to a remote workforce. At Blueboard, we have a remote team. So Shannon is actually going to kick us off here. Take it away, Shannon. How do we think about appreciation across all the different countries we operate in?
Absolutely. I love this question because I think it speaks to a couple of different things. One is just the general challenges about staying consistent and connected and engaged when you have a remote workforce. And the other is that when you have a remote workforce, you often see that employees in different places have different cultural expectations for recognition, for appreciation, even just as Morgan was talking about before, how publicly it is appropriate to share information about them. And this is something that I think a lot about at Blueboard. We have folks in multiple offices in the US, as well as in the Ukraine and in the Philippines. And everybody in all of those different places has, different ideas about what recognition should look like. And so building a large kind of operation of recognition and appreciation for our employees means laying a foundation of the things that we want everyone around Blueboard to experience, because they are critical to our recognition culture, and acknowledging that in each of our locations and with our different remote employees, there are going to be unique variances that are specific to those places. So on our side, we have some standards across the whole company where we are sort of making some noise and showcasing our stars in public settings. And so the top examples of those that I think really are important for the remote workforce are, we do peer-to-peer shout outs in our all team meetings each week, and those are recorded and shared with everybody in all of our time zones. We also do quarterly and annual rewards, as Morgan mentioned, that are related to our values, and anybody in any of our offices is eligible to receive those. So, our greatest of all time for the year or for the quarter may be someone who mostly people only interact with by Slack. You don't have to work at, HQ to be able to get the big reward. I think that that's really important to people, that it feels inclusive and accessible to everybody. And then another one, which Annette was just talking about as well, is we have a really significant Blueboard reward for every anniversary for our employees. And that allows them to go on a Blueboard experience themselves, go on a trip. It's a pretty big deal. And everybody in each of our different offices kind of has their own version of that. And we ask them all to come back and share how they used that reward in a lunch and learn, where the rest of the organization gets to see, what is the Ukraine version of celebrating your 3-year anniversary at Blueboard? What's the Philippine version of your 1 year? So there's a lot of visibility into it, and we just create this culture of sharing. I think the Blueboard rewards also, they generate photos, they generate stories, and so there's like a lot to go along with it, and then they become very memorable, and people are excited to talk about it. So those are some of the foundations that we have that sort of exist across the whole organization. And then in each different location, there are smaller things that we do. We do a culture survey to understand, do you want to be shouted out on your birthday or not? Some people don't. We've had some employees who get married or have a baby, have these life milestones that they're just like, ooh, please don't put that up there. And others who are like, get my face on the screen, I want everybody to see. And so, we try to make sure that people feel comfortable and are showing us the way about how we can celebrate their lives and their outside lives in a way that makes sense for them in the context of the company. And the final thing I'll say on this is that we do encourage managers. We talk about this actually in interviews, but also then again, when employees are in our performance reviews, how do you need feedback? What do you need from me? Like, how can I help you feel that you're getting the kind of recognition and feedback that you need to grow and learn? And so we really do encourage managers to engage in those conversations, which leads to the more personal and one-on-one type of appreciation.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Shannon. It's always great to hear the recap of our programs. Sarah, remind me, was there anything you wanted to share just around remote workforce at WillowTree? I know you have a high concentration of people in your main office, but anything you'd like to share here?
Well, I would say that this works kind of like Shannon was saying, even if it's not for a remote workforce, you need to think about cross-site team members as well. and making sure, you know, it kind of means a lot if you're getting recognized by somebody who doesn't even work with you day to day and you've just interacted with a little bit and they've been so impressed by the work that you've done that you're getting, you know, appreciation or recognition from somebody who you've never even met in person. It kind of has an extra special touch to it as well.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. And we have, I know Shannon's going to talk about performance reviews later on, but we implemented peer feedback, which is another place to kind of grab those appreciation moments cross-functionally. And that was such a great addition to our recent process. Wonderful. All right.
I was gonna hop in. So we at Lattice are not generally a remote workforce, but right now we are, because we are all work from home due to coronavirus, which I'm sure a lot of people who may be watching this webinar right now can sympathize with. We had to suddenly become a remote workforce very quickly. But one of the ways I feel like we have helped maintain culture across this sort of like weird time is through a lot of positive praise and a lot of positive feedback over our praise channels. It sort of makes people feel like their managers or executives on the team are noticing that they're still doing their work and still doing a great job. We also still use it to celebrate all those milestones. So we can still celebrate anniversaries. When we do our all hands, which is entirely on Zoom now, you know, so you have 150 people crowded into a Zoom meeting, we still, you know, make sure that we include all those milestone slides and celebrations in that setting, even though it's not in person. So it's really about sort of that appreciation and recognition will actually help mitigate these sort of weird, unstable, uncertain times and make people feel more connected. So just keep that in mind if you're struggling with that right now as a new remote workforce, that this is something that can really help.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know the more working remote virtually is on everyone's mind right now. So I'm so glad you brought that up, Annette. Okay, moving on, we have one more question, and I'm going to have Sara lead this one off. It's really all about participation and how can we get, how should HR get involved, or how do we kind of work proactively to make sure that managers are aware of programs and that they are recognizing employees. Laura presents this as kind of the, you know, unfortunately, it seems like she's had some managers who aren't participating, but Sara would love to hear how you proactively approach this to make sure that people can get involved.
Yeah, and I think HR should get involved, right? We're here to kind of champion these activities, and if we're not championing it, who will? And so, I mean, first things first, we need to know if a manager isn't recognizing or rewarding their team member. We need to be able to find that out. WillowTree started recently using Lattice, which is awesome because we can run analytics and see, hey, are there certain departments or certain managers who just really aren't using the tool or really aren't participating. So we're able to kind of isolate those scenarios. And then I find my role really to be to work with that manager and find out, you know, do they understand the importance of this? Do they understand the benefits that are coming from recognition? Give them a couple examples of, you know, people that they might know who have been really impacted by having some sort of encouraging recognition. And then use it as a coaching opportunity, right? We're able to really coach that manager on how to do a better job in recognizing their team members and how to help make their team feel appreciated. The other thing that this lets us do too is, you know, maybe there's a reason that that manager isn't giving as much recognition, right? Maybe there's some sort of performance problem or concern on their team, and this kind of creates an avenue to then have that conversation and use it as another coaching opportunity as well.
Awesome. Thank you, Sara, so much. I think the coaching is great. That's leaning forward. That's taking this to a place of learning development as well. Did anyone else want to share thoughts on this specific question from Laura? We can move on. Thank you again, Laura, for your question, if you're on with us. And I also wanted just to comment, I'm loving all of the recognition programs that you guys are sharing on chat. So helpful. Please continue to share those and give each other feedback if you'd like. Reminding to share with panelists and attendees so that everybody can see the great programs you're building. Okay, so we're going to move into our next and last section, which is all about, you know, what are the 4 best practices for giving and receiving appreciation? How do we set ourselves up for success when thinking about crafting these recognition and appreciation moments. So we're going to start with the first one, which is all about real-time and tied to specific behaviors. And I'm going to turn it over to Sara for her point of view here.
Sure. Yeah, we obviously real-time feedback is kind of the most important way to really reinforce behaviors that you want to see, right? We hear that all the time. I'm currently going through a bunch of dog training courses, and they say the same thing, right? Immediate praise and recognition, and it kind of ties to humans as well. It helps reinforce that behaviors. And so, most companies, WillowTree included, have core values. We have 7 core values that we tie everything to. Currently, the biggest way that we're giving praise is by using the Lattice tool, like Annette was saying earlier. I think that allows you to tie everything to one of those specific core values. So it just helps reinforce those particular behaviors as you're going forward, and helps team members really be able to isolate, what about the project or the action or the kind of above and beyond instance was the part that was receiving the praise. What was it that everybody appreciated seeing, so that they can continue to do that again.
Awesome. Yeah, and we love tied to specific behavior, again, just for that notion of recognition and rewards also being an opportunity for a ripple effect. The more you can pinpoint the behavior that was done, the more likely that's not only going to stick into the employee's head as something they can continue to strive towards, but also use those moments to cascade out what great work looks like, so that others also are trained, or at least encouraged in that sense, to emulate the same track of activity.
I just want to butt in real quick with the point.
Yeah, of course.
If anyone is a fan of Radical Candor, the book by Kim Scott, this is a big point in that book about delivering feedback, is really just timing it. And even if it's just stopping someone in the office and saying, hey, really good job on that presentation, or really great job. Or if it's, I mean, even constructive feedback given in the moment is a lot more effective, just because it hits home right in the moment where the person is focused on that thing. So obviously the appreciation and praise is going to be a lot more impactful if it's delivered, even if it's just like in passing.
Yeah, I was thinking through a previous role when I was in sales at Google. Our client was a mere blocks away from our office. It was incredibly convenient, but my manager, as we would go and have meetings, would take that opportunity on our walk back just to be like, how did you think that meeting went? And just air it out. We were walking, which is always such a great format for having discussion anyway. And thinking not only about how easy is it to receive recognition, right, or appreciation or feedback as the employee, but as a manager, it's also your job to be comfortable giving it. And what we found was like this cadence of like the walk back to the office was this consistent, repetitive time that we would have opportunity for feedback or appreciation if the meeting went really well. And it became, not awkward. It was something I was expected to look forward to, right? And was just an easy, casual way to end that moment right after the meeting, have that conversation and talk about what went well, talk about what we learned, and like things to consider for next time. Which kind of segues into our next piece about growth opportunity. But I think it's also, the manager's role to, again, catch those moments, make it comfortable, and also look for those repeat times so that the employee isn't like caught off guard by maybe feedback once a year or appreciation once a year, but not again, to make sure it's part of that rhythm and something that, again, is enjoyable to go through for both parties. Okay, so we'll move into our next tenet, which is all about growth oriented. I'm going to pass it over to Shannon just to share her thoughts on this piece.
Sure. Yeah. So I love being really growth oriented with appreciation and praise. I think on this, we have a tendency to recognize our greatest of all time, our person who goes above and beyond, that superstar who everybody in the company knows is doing a great job. And I think it's important when you're building a appreciation program or recognition program, that you're also thinking about the people who are improving, the people who were struggling with something before and have put in the effort and the legwork to make some obvious steps forward, so that they are a more effective collaborator, so that, you know, when they get up to do some public speaking that they previously were terrified by, they can do it for like 1 or 2 minutes in a smaller group meeting. You know, acknowledging that we don't all, you know, wake up each morning and suddenly get on this path to be our absolute very, very, very best selves. We have to take time to recognize the people who are taking small steps toward the change that makes them an outstanding employee, an outstanding teammate. And so I think, you know, we just can't preserve appreciation and praise only for the very top performers. Otherwise, other folks who are really working hard or who need a little bit of motivation and encouragement don't get to participate in that, and they lose that motivation and encouragement. So I think, you know, taking the opportunities to look for people who are making strides, even if they are not the biggest, most outstanding strides, that still matters, and that still makes such a huge difference into what they're able to do later. So that's, you know, sort of one take on growth oriented. A way that we talk about it at Blueboard is that our performance reviews are really focused on growth and opportunity and development, as opposed to like, come in, have your performance review, and let's talk about your salary, right? Like whenever people come into those conversations, they can't be as open and they can't kind of take in feedback and ideas if the compensation conversation is also in the room with them. It's just not easy psychologically. So we have actually, you know, sort of signed on so completely with a sort of growth mindset and helping our employees learn and grow, that we've separated our performance reviews from our compensation reviews, and we do them at off times a year. So people can really use those opportunities to be introspective, to be vulnerable, to recognize the little steps and not feel like they have to make a case for the huge thing. So my 2 cents, my 20 cents on growth oriented, I feel like it's just so important, and a really big part of appreciation and praise is recognizing everybody is working to improve themselves and make change.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Shannon. We're going to move into our next item, which is all about making it public. Again, thinking of those places where you can really celebrate the great work people are doing, to model for others, and to continue the celebrations, of course. Sarah, I'll pass it over to you for how you're bringing that to life, specifically at WillowTree.
Sure. Yeah, we have found that by having a public, what we call public praise outlet, it really has been able to get us into this practice of, you know, taking a feedback culture and bringing it to the entire company. I see, you know, my team members giving positive praise or feedback to somebody else, I'm going to be more inclined to do it. I'm seeing that as the norm. I'm understanding that it's part of the expectation of my role to be giving people praise. And it's allowed us to really kind of turn it into a fun sort of group activity amongst, you know, 550 of our best friends. You can see here in the slide, there's a picture of the Lattice praise tool, which is what we've been using, where you can react with emojis and things like that to really help. You know, it's not just one person giving you praise, it's your fellow team members and other friends within the organization that are able to kind of pile onto that as well. So when WillowTree started this, we actually just launched Lattice about 3 or 4 months ago and really started using this praise tool. And the first thing was to have a big kickoff for it, right? I talked to our leadership and had already, you know, easily gotten their buy-in, but started talking to our managers as well to make them understand, hey, this is important and this is why we're doing this, and I'm expecting you to help me champion it and participate. And they all got on board very, very quickly. We tried to use positive reinforcement to get people to use this tool and to give praise. We even had a manager in our Durham, North Carolina office. He spent like, you know, $10 on Amazon and got a bunch of little plastic dinosaurs and said, anybody who gives 2 pieces of praise or feedback today gets a little dinosaur. And so, you know, silly things like that might not work for every environment, but for that particular office, it worked really, really well. I participated and he mailed a little dinosaur up to me, and it was very exciting for everybody. And then the next thing we tried to do is really tie it into a routine. So for us, every Friday, we need to make sure that we've completed our timesheets. That is a activity that is ingrained in all of us. We are all used to doing it. And I had a team member who decided, all right, when we do that, let's also, send a reminder about timesheets, but also send a reminder about Feedback Friday. And let's see if we can turn this into an activity that everybody is participating in. And what we found is people are still giving feedback and praise throughout the week, but now we've got this extra thing to look forward to on Fridays. And people are really trying to think of great examples to share and really using that opportunity to give some feedback to their team members. And a lot of us look forward to just hopping into the praise channel on Fridays and seeing, hey, what's been given to our friends, and where can we comment or add little Slack emojis or pile on a little extra support for people. And then the next really important thing is just making sure that you've got champions that, you as a human resources professional, you probably don't have a giant team, and you can't have a program like this run if it's just up to you. So really getting some buy-in from some enthusiastic team members who are going to champion this for you would be really, really helpful. I was able to get a champion who launched a whole new program I didn't even know it was happening until she let me know about it. But for Employee Appreciation Week last week, she came up with a pay it forward praise game where they told everybody, hey, if you receive praise, try to give praise to somebody else, and let's see if we can get a chain going. And the rules were that the praise had to be significant, kind of substantial praise that really mattered. And it was a fun game to, again, watch play out. And I didn't even have to take part in it because I had this other person championing this whole activity for me.
That's awesome. I love that, Sarah. And on Blueboard's end, we're excited to, we'll be launching a Slack integration actually shortly with our own company to show like the rewards and recognition that's passed along and the rewards that are received. But I'm loving just seeing the visuals from Lattices, and I love especially that you can claim the company value that's demonstrated as well. Annette, did you want to add anything here just to mechanics or anything else of how you're internally using praise at Lattice, being the ones that built it? I'm so curious what your best practices are too.
Yeah, it's really, we try to gear them around moments, and we really ingrain that from onboarding onward. And it's also part of our manager training as well, to like make sure that feedback is part of that sort of reflexive muscle that everybody uses on the regular. But yeah, a lot of what we value internally has been built into our tools. So values was really important to us as a company. And so we add that to that's an option that every manager can select when they deliver praise. And the display, putting it in public places. So that praise wall feature was also something that we really wanted internally. So we wanted to roll that out to customers and like help them be able to celebrate more. It's funny because I just answered a question in the chat for Sativa, who talked about ways that they can make it easier for like more distributed workforces, like people who work in warehouses and things like that. I think just creating like public spaces where that everyone can see, like whether it's like displays in a break room or like a shared messaging app, if regardless of what it is. I mean, for us it's Slack, but for others it's different. Just creating like something that everyone can see, that is easy to do. I mean, that's the real key, is like making it easy to share, is really going to help like raise the game on the amount of praise you see.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, to Annette's point, another thing you could do that I've done in other organizations where there wasn't as much computer access is, put a stack of sticky notes out and a header on a board that says, I'd like to thank my team member for, and then, everybody can write it down and you're walking past and you get to see it, and other people are more encouraged to do that as well.
I was also weighing in on the chat. Sativa, we were all very interested in your question, it seems like. One thing that I've seen before that I think is great is if you have values and you can empower employees to recognize one another for the values by printing up little cards that are just like, one of our values is supporting each other or something like that. And then they can actually actively give someone that values card when they participate in that behavior. I think just that kind of effort, one, gets everybody involved, and two, allows for the real-time kind of feedback that would be hard otherwise in that setting.
Wonderful. Thank you guys so much. And Sativa, again, thank you for your question. I'm just sending over a few more notes so you can see them too. Great. So moving into, oh, sorry, public praise and action, Sarah, we were just going to talk about how you measure the impact.
Yep. So like I said before, I'll talk just to what we've recently been doing in using the Lattice tool. And so I just ran some numbers before I came over here, and in the last 90 days, we've had 1,400 pieces of feedback go back and forth within our team members. 550 of those pieces of feedback were public praise that people received. Over 80% of our team members have received some sort of praise in the last 90 days using this tool. So I think that's kind of a clear indication that what we tried to get launched with this is working, and that having those champions is really helping. I've also been talking to team members to see, hey, what is the impact of this? Is this just you feel good for a minute and that's it, or is it having a larger impact? And I went out knowing I was going to be talking here to try to get some examples. And what I heard kind of overwhelmingly is that trust and psychological safety amongst our teams is being increased because of that. Part of that reason is people are feeling, hey, I am doing a good job. I am on the right track. I know what I'm supposed to be doing. One of the questions that somebody asked earlier was about remote workforces or kind of split workforces. And I had a specific team member who recently got his department recently reorganized, and he has a new manager who's in a different office in a different state. And he and I had a conversation a little while ago where he was feeling a little uncertain about his future here. And I saw that he received some public praise in Lattice, and I went and asked him if that had any impact. And he said, absolutely. Now I am aware that not only am I aligned with my manager, but that my team members commented on that and also agree. And I know that I'm on the right track and doing the right things. And I feel, like I'm totally on board with this new direction now. We also had leadership. We focus so much sometimes on top-down feedback to make sure that our managers are giving a lot of praise, that sometimes we forget that managers need praise too. And so I reached out to a leadership team member who also had received public feedback, and he said, hey, it really made me understand that I was, again, on the right track with what was in front of me. People were appreciating what I was doing, and I'm not just kind of flying blind here. I'm actually making some sort of impact. So it's really had some great impacts across the board with every level of team member in our organization.
That's awesome. That's so great to hear. I think we forget sometimes that recognition and appreciation feels great to give, but even better to receive, right? So both parties often are benefiting from those warm, fuzzy moments. And I also love that you called out the psychological safety of really having that reinforcement that the work I'm doing here has meaning and has purpose, and other people are seeing me, and again, pointing me in the direction that I need to move forward to be successful here. That's also so important. Great, thank you, Sarah. We're going to move into our last kind of best practice here, which is, again, thinking of opportunities for recognition to be aligned with your company values. Shannon, I'll pass it over to you for a quick overview of how we're celebrating company values demonstration at Blueboard.
Sure. So we've all kind of talked about this. I won't stick on it for too long since we're running a little short on time here, but just generally as an anchor for any kind of appreciation and praise, having those company values to sort of put a pin in and say, yes, you're demonstrating it. That was an incredible way to display it. That reinforces your values. So it's this very virtuous cycle where, you are not only encouraging people to display the values by rewarding the values, but you're also signaling to the company these values are truly important to us, and they do form the foundation of how we think about our company and how we want people to be here. So I think always tying appreciation and praise into them is something that we all feel really strongly about and see as just a very valuable part of how you think about your recognition practices.
Great. Shannon, thank you so much. And actually, in honor of Manny, who wasn't able to join us today, we still wanted to actually walk through some of his programs because they're so special, and they're actually perfect demonstrations of company values. So again, we're very sad he can't join us today, but happy to continue to celebrate all the work that he's done during his time at Livongo. So Propel Awards. Propel Awards are Livongo's opportunity to really celebrate above and beyond performers twice a year who absolutely demonstrate their values. And Propel actually spells out the values. Their values are people, results, originality, passion, excellence, and learning. So what they do is actually choose a winner who best demonstrates each of those 6 values. They won a few awesome things that we'll talk about next. They won a custom bobblehead, which you can see here. He's posing with a teammate with his Superman bobblehead. For each of the ones that demonstrate the single company value, they get a Blueboard Tiburon Award, which is a $1,000 value. Incredible opportunity to try some amazing local activities or do a little bit of traveling. What's awesome too about Livongo, given their focus on health and wellness, specifically with an organization and community who's fighting diabetes, is that employees also get to pair that reward with a $200 donation to a charity of their choice. And we're actually fulfilling that for them through our Blueboard platform as well. Additionally, to those that receive the individual company value awards, they also have a most propelled player reward, which is the person who effectively emulates all of the company values. It's the top of the top, the person who's just truly living their mission, their values daily, and best demonstrates all 6. That most propelled player wins a Blueboard Emerald Award, which is for a bucket list travel experience. Such an amazing opportunity again. They also received the bobblehead and the $200 donation towards the charity of their choice. So we love this because it's biannual. It really gets to highlight those individuals who shine and continues to keep company values top of mind as people are having conversations and observing each other's behaviors. And because it's peer nominated, it means that the entire company gets to participate in some way, even if they're the ones who are really lifting up these other individuals and contributing their recommendations for their peers or managers who best deserve these rewards. So how has the Propel Rewards ultimately changed the game? One, of course, and Sarah mentioned this too, it's just built so much fun and culture and love for the organization. You'll see a teammate in the top right who was winning his reward for originality, Martel, who just was so touched and appreciated by being called out for the originality value there. And you'll also see some of the Blueboarding moments that we've captured here with Allie specifically, who got to go on a trip with her partner here, getting to go and do something that they love into the Wisconsin Dells. We love capturing feedback. And again, these recognition stories are so powerful. When you're thinking about someone who's an above and beyond performer, you really want to make sure that that time stays with them, that those memories are formed and they're very rich and they continue to motivate that person to continue living the values for all time. And again, continuing to hold those memories closely with your company that have shaped those connections they have with others. So I wanted to call out a few fun quotes here. Chris M., who was a Propel Awards winner, got to go to the Air Ancient Bass with his most propelled player award. And he loved that, you know, seeing the stress on his girlfriend's face melt away was such a beautiful moment. And they also had coordinated with our concierge team a surprise dinner, having a lot of their friends actually join them on their trip. So this trip was all for his girlfriend, which I thought was so sweet. And she was completely surprised when all of her friends showed up on this amazing experience. A great way for him to be celebrated, but also to pay it forward, including his loved ones with him. And then lastly, another quote here just about ease of use, very little effort required, such a great way to be celebrated. Last item I'll comment on, because I know we're running close on time, is just the opportunity to continue sharing. We talked about socialization and action and really making sure that those above and beyond moments are celebrated. And I just wanted to highlight a great tool we've built at Blueboard for recognition stories, which is all about capturing those moments, giving HR administrators and leaders like Manny here the opportunity to write up an achievement for this specific Propel winner and use this tool to share content internally, whether in company newsletters, at town halls, or things like that. This is, again, our recognition stories feature, and happy to chat more about that with anyone who is interested. So as we wrap up, we went through a few questions that we did not miss, or we had to miss, unfortunately. I want to drop us into Q&A here. If we want to do a quick round of final discussion just to close us out, we can talk about inclusivity. This question came from Noel. Shannon, Sarah, welcome your thoughts here, how to think about recognition frameworks that are truly equitable across teams. How do we think about the messaging we use, the qualifications we use to make sure that everybody can ultimately participate here? And we'll close on that. I'll bring us back to the codes. Thank you.
Sure. I'll just be really quick on this one. I think, you know, we try to be really transparent about our recognition, making sure that people are aware of all the programs, they know how to participate in the programs, and that a lot of information and nominations are from the team at large. Anybody is welcome to participate. Anyone is welcome to, you know, nominate someone else as a winner. And I think that's one way we help. Another one is that we also take time to have rewards and recognition that are specifically designated for some of our teams that are larger and might be overlooked by the greater company when thinking about who a greatest employee is or who demonstrated values. And so there are sort of within each team, there are also rewards that we do to make sure that we don't miss out on certain parts of our employee population that deserve recognition, but that have a little bit less visibility for others across the organization.
Yeah, and if there's any way to, you know, like we talked before, to run any sort of analytics around what is being, what sort of rewards or recognitions are going out, and maybe have some sort of task force or body of team members to help just kind of look into that information to make sure if we need to nudge in a certain area, we can.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you both for that last final question. I wanted to get one more in. I know we're a little bit over time, so thanks everyone for staying on with us for a few more minutes. We're doing more and more great content here at Blueboard. Please stay in touch with us via the resources page on our website. And as Annette mentioned, please check out the Lattice community on Slack as well. You can find that via their website as well. We'll be posting our recap next week for anyone who had to miss out, or if you'd like to share forward all of the great ideas we shared today, we'd love that too. Everyone have a great rest of your day, and thank you again to all our panelists. We will see you next time.
Thanks, Morgan.
Bye, thanks.
Bye.